talk a little bit about gig economy workers, maybe in for a rude surprise this tax season. Now, I've always done some kind of tax piece. I've had, different people come on who are pros in the field and answer questions. We've tried this a bunch of different ways, but what I think would be most, I'm going to hit on this story a little bit today, but obviously in the next few weeks, we'll be talking about this even more. So, despite IRS delays in implementing lower thresholds for the issuance of 1099K forms, most gig workers are unaware of the changed rules, meaning they're in for a surprise this tax season. So I think everybody's we've talked about it a few times. I think you all understand that. I think it was 2021 during the pandemic. They were pushing for a rule under the old administration that $600 or more earned in any single thing has to be reported. Like example, if I had a garage sale and I sold $650 worth of items, I have to report that garage sale. Now, for those of you thinking, well, shouldn't you have to report all income? So like, okay, people on eBay and things like this, and even gig apps, they've really been like, Uber's done it, the 1099K, but you have to kind of do it yourself. You have to remove amounts in the past years. But now what it is it's still, from what I can see, it's still pushing towards that $600 threshold. They have pushed that 2 different years. Like 2 years ago, it was supposed to be in effect. Then last year. Now it was supposed to be this year, and then it wasn't. But something did happen this year, because if you're wondering, well, again, shouldn't that all be taxed? Well, the old threshold was $20,000 or 200 transactions. So let's say that you had an Etsy or an eBay account, and you did 199 transactions and you sold $19,000 worth of goods. No, you don't have to report that on a 1099K form. So this is now applying to the gig workers, though, as well, like not just freelancers and things like that. But so there was a survey taken where 73% of gig workers said they did not know about the new $5,000 reporting threshold. So again, what have we talked about? We talked about $600 or more is what they've been pushing for years, but there was a thing about not having enough agents, having to retrain them, all this stuff, and giving them a few years. And then where it was 20,000. So what am I talking about with this 5,000? So the new 5,000 reporting schedule, and then 61%, so that's 73% were unaware of the new 5,000 reporting threshold. 61% of gig workers were unaware that 1099K rules were changing at all. So we're not going to go all through all taxes here, you guys, but you need to have some you need to know about this, because this is going to be a big deal. In fact, some of you have probably already been getting maybe even mail from off-brand apps if you've done a certain amount of business with them that maybe you haven't seen in years past. But yeah, so it's the latest indication that the IRS rule change and delays have sowed confusion among self-employed Americans. Yeah, no doubt. Payment apps and online marketplaces are required to distribute 1099K tax forms to taxpayers with over a certain amount in business-related transactions on the platform. Companies like Venmo and Etsy must issue a 1099K to their users and their sellers. And gig work companies like Uber are also required to send them to some of their workers. So again, previously the threshold for sending 1099Ks was relatively pretty high. The form went out when someone had over 200 transactions in a given year and a gross amount that exceeded $20,000. And it's not or, it's and. So, but under the new rules that emerged, from the 2021 American Rescue Plan, the threshold is being dropped to $600. So we were at 20,000 for like decades. Now it's going to $600. And the 200 transaction minimum no longer applies. Clearly, it doesn't apply because you're not going to need 200 transactions to get to $600 pretty much doing anything. So when they do get to that 600 amount, realize that these transactions, if you knew anything about that, those don't matter anymore. Now it's just going to be if you make over $600 working anything on anything for anyone, you're going to have to report it, and it's going to have to be through a 1099K. The IRS is phasing in new requirements, and the shift has been repeatedly delayed and tweaked to give the firms and taxpayers time to adjust. In November of just last year, the agency confirmed that payment processors and marketplaces would be required to report gross transactions exceeding $5,000 in 2024. That's the threshold that applies for the current tax season. Remember April 15th, guys? I know everybody knows it, but we haven't really been talking about it yet because it's early February. But you know what? I'm going to put it out there. April 15th is when you need to file. We all know this, but we're under 2 months. These new 1099K rules are adding stress for gig workers who already tend to have somewhat complicated tax situations with multiple sources of income and lots of work-related deductions. Amid the confusion, 37% of gig workers, including online marketplace sellers, digital content creators, and influencers, short-term rental hosts like Airbnb or the other one, Verbo, and rideshare and delivery drivers, said they believe this will be the first year they received a 1099K form. I think that a lot of you guys, if you do rideshare or probably even Eats for Uber, like you've seen some of the years pass. Like it can be very confusing what is in the app for you to take in and how you would report that. So the thresholds changing are one thing, but the fact that these companies have to report it is probably a good thing because you actually will have physical copies now. That was something that was getting people, like we've told the Portland, Oregon story about the driver who was audited before. He ended up, not having all the receipts he needed. Well, these aren't exact receipts on the clients, but at least it proves that you paid or that you received your 1099K from the company, and hopefully you added it into your taxes. Going forward, the rules will continue to change. A $2,500 threshold will apply for 2025 before the final $600 cutoff kicks in the following year. So this year we're earning, when you do your next year taxes, it's going to be $2,500. And then for 2026 reporting in 2027, it'll be $600. We'll see if all that plays out as it should. But only 18% of workers knew these changes were even coming into effect, and that's like all workers. So this, that's it. I mean, we're gonna go through more tax stuff. I do have more here, but we're gonna go through more tax stuff. But I just wanted to make sure that you guys knew that. We talked about it a couple times, but it's been a minute. It is important because I'll be honest, like I wasn't 100% aware that in November that they changed the 20,000 to 5,000. I wasn't aware of that. And I thought that it was just another year like they've done the last 2 years of, it's still 20 grand, but next year it's going to be 600. That's what they've said every year. Now it's 5, then it's going to be 25, then 6. So they seem to be working that way. We'll see. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think for one, it's just a way to make sure that at least everybody knows they're accountable for this, but be on the lookout for 1099Ks.